What, John, by the way, how many did you end up placing any prop bets? How many actual number of individual bets did you place yesterday?
So I wrote the article, but living in Georgia and needing to figure out my VPN, I didn't actually. But
Okay. All right. So, but how many did you have high confidence on?
there was definitely a handful in there. I got to look back to see which exactly hit, but I know that the mock I did actually had a decent amount of exact picks.
How about you, Jim? How many volume of picks before we get into
I'll tell you exactly what I have. Let me get the sheet open here. Let's see. So I lost my Evan Neal bets because Thibodeau fell. I won the Jordan Davis under 13.5 because of the trade up. I lost the Malik Willis under 13.5 and the Garrett Wilson under 9.5 by a half a pick. I have a bunch of them for today.
All right, nice. Yeah, and that's what we're going to do today for everybody. What we're going to do is we're going to just do a small, quick review of our takeaways from round one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about maybe the first 10 picks or so of round two, and then see if there's any value from a prop betting play to make people some money here. All right, so let's start with Jim real quick. What was the best pick, the worst pick, and your favorite pick of round one? And if two of those overlap, that's fine.
The best pick was really Kayvon Thibodeau by the Giants because I know they wanted a tackle, but they did the math. There were 3 tackles available. They were picking at 5 and 7. So instead of taking the position they were going to take, they realized they would get both the edge and. That's why I felt that was the best pick on the board. Why doesn't Johnny talk about his? Then we can get to the other ones.
Well, also tell us your worst pick, and then I'm going to ask John both his. Tell us your least favorite pick first.
I thought I loved Jameson Williams, but going to the Lions, no bueno. Not a fan. Because right now, Jared Goff's going to, and they may change that equation, but it's not changing soon. And you want deep speed, but you got a guy that can't throw him the ball. So to me, if you want to help Jared Goff, if that's what they're thinking to do, you need somebody he can work with.
All right, John, best pick, worst pick, and favorite pick if it doesn't overlap with either of those two.
So I thought that my at least my favorite pick was Chris Olave to the Saints. I think the Saints came in Thursday knowing that they needed to attack receiver, and the run had started with Drake London going off the board and then Garrett Wilson. So the Saints had to be proactive, and they utilized the draft capital that they had to go ahead, move up, and get their guy. And I thought that of the possible receiver team pairings, there couldn't have been a better one really than Olave to the Saints. They love their Ohio State guys down there in New Orleans for whatever reason, but I think that pick works out beautifully. And I did love Jordan Davis to the Eagles. I put that in my first mock. I thought that him next to Fletcher Cox was just such an awesome way to kind of fortify the front of that defense and get Davis, a guy that he's next to develop with. That it's a veteran that can kind of show him the ropes at the NFL level. So I thought the Eagles just overall crushed it last night. I thought the Saints overall did very well for themselves too. I do not like the Jameson Williams pick. That I'm sure we can unpack that even further. That's not great. I thought the Carolina made a mistake by not trading out of 6 just because they're not going to be picking again until I believe the early or late 4th, something like that. So I thought that they could have certainly done well to accrue a little bit more draft capital. Didn't love that, even though Icky, I'm sure, is going to be a fine player for them. Don't love the Kenny Pickett play. Tyler Smith, I think, is someone that got poo-pooed a lot by the Cowboys fans that really wanted to see something a little bit more exciting. But I thought that was an okay enough pick. And then the one that got panned really hard at the end, everyone knows about was Cole Strange out of UT Chattanooga going to the Patriots. That felt like the reach of reaches. There's a certain degree of hubris that I feel like Bill Belichick is operating with on that one.
Before we get into that, and by the way, I love that analysis. And, it's mind-boggling how Bill Belichick is the best coach in the history of the NFL when you take out choosing first-round players, right? After that, he's great. But you add that in, it's like a big giant wart on his nose, So, Jim, there was two big fantasy related trades last night and real NFL trades. Marquise Brown gets traded for the 23rd pick plus a little change going to Arizona. And then obviously the big AJ Brown trade. Those prices were pretty similar, but those two players are not pretty similar. Break those down a little bit from a reality perspective. Why was the trade prices so close, yet the players, there's a big chasm between them?
The trade cost will be similar. The contract price will be significantly different. And I think sometimes that is part of the deal because teams got to navigate the salary cap as well. And so A.J. Brown's making a boatload of money. I don't think Marquise Brown's going to make anywhere in that neighborhood. So it's a little easier to justify. But realistically, the Cardinals have been desperate for legitimate, useful speed. And this is their first opportunity to get that. And of course, Kyler has a history with Hollywood Brown, which helps as well. But really, they draft Andy Isabella, an abject bust. They just need speed. This at least gets them an element, and maybe it helps to keep Kyler happy because we obviously know he has a strained relationship with the team. Now, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts apparently was lobbying for him, which is a great thing. I just hope that he can get the ball to A.J. Brown. Now, the good thing is A.J. Brown runs a lot of slants and, obviously the in-breaking I'm talking about here. And those are very easy passes to complete to use his run after the catch ability. So it's possible that does make Jalen Hurts a better quarterback because the throws are easier. And with the body control and the boxing out element, those would be very helpful. So I definitely think both teams had very important additions to their rosters.
This is going to be I think this is bad news for fantasy football if A.J. Brown is still considered a top 5 wide receiver. Now, again, not that he's not a top 12 wide receiver, but you're going to have games where he disappeared. I know that happened last year too, but it's, when Jalen Hurts is going to tuck and run, right? He's going to tuck and run a little bit. All right, John, I'm doing the Dynasty rankings for the RotoWire site right now in Superflex. I need to figure out who's going to be my wide receiver 1 in rookie drafts. Is it going to be Drake London? Is it going to be Chris Olave? Is it going to be Treylon Burks? Do I have those 3? Is that the right tier? I want you to give me the top 4, zip them down right now. I'll let you change your mind in a couple days if you want to. But if anyone's drafting their rookie draft right now, you're crazy. But I want you to give me the top 4.
So I think London and Olave represent the top tier, and that's a tier unto themselves. I could hear arguments for either of them, but I think both of them have such clear paths to targets. I think the team is much worse in Atlanta, but I think that Drake London, who's used to getting force-fed by bad quarterbacks and bad offenses, he's ready to step right in. So I think he's going to be a PPR machine. I think he's got that touchdown ability as well with his size and his box-out ability. You have to worry a little bit about Kyle Pitts, of course, but I think that he probably is the 1A to Olave's 1B. I'd probably put Garrett Wilson at 3, just because I think
ahead of Treylon Burks.
So I'll go ahead and preempt it. I think that Treylon Burks is the biggest landmine. I think that he is going to get completely overexposed as a rookie. You already have the connection in everyone's mind where it's like the night that A.J. Brown got traded is the night that we picked you. Why aren't you A.J. Brown? So like it's just, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. He ran so much out of the slot at Arkansas because Arkansas knew a guy who's 6'2", 225, he's not going to get checked by like an SEC nickel corner like that, so it's smart to use him that way. Now he's going to have to go outside. I think that there's going to be, he is that big guy and everything, but can he actually translate those tools and make it work and create separation down the field? And he doesn't have great long speed either. So I'm worried about Burks. I think that, this could be something where you hear about Nick Westbrook-Akina running ahead of him in training camp and people start to get really, really nervous about it. So I think that's a bad landing spot. I think Burks needed to go somewhere where he didn't need to be ready to rock right away. So I think as far as a rookie draft is concerned, Burks is someone that I'm probably going to be fading with regularity. So
yeah, I mean, he has the most interesting rookie ride of any of the prospects in this class. He went from being the 1-1 in all formats to, oh my God, I wouldn't take him in the first round. And now he's back being discussed as a top 2 or 3 pick. And sharp guys like yourself are saying, hey, that's a fade right there. So I'm going to pay attention to that. All right, Jim, we all expected Malik Willis to go in round 1. I did not think he was going to fall out of the round. I thought at very minimum somebody would trade up. You and I talked about it. There's been a lot of momentum on day of the draft right now for the Giants to make a move, which makes sense. Brian Dable, he had Tyrod Taylor. He drafted him when he was in Buffalo. He has him on the roster right now. He could use him as a mentor. That could mean Daniel Jones is out. I want you to tell me who's going to make the plunge and going to take Malik Willis. Is he going to go at all in the first 10 picks?
I think he does have to go in the first 10 picks at some point. First day draft capital. It's one of those things where you lose jobs when you ruin that first round pick. There's a little more flexibility on the second day. I did list 2 teams that I thought would be in on Malik Willis. And before reading any reports that you had mentioned, I was in on the Giants at 2-4, which you thought that maybe they'll trade up, and the Seahawks would be the second one at 2-8. I don't think he gets past either of those picks. Both teams are desperate for a quarterback. Obviously, Daniel Jones, as you mentioned correctly, is not the answer. Brian Dable is an aggressive offensive coach. He can definitely look what he was able to do in terms of harnessing in Josh Allen. He can maybe work some of that magic with Willis, who has that physical upside. Definitely knows how to work with that mobile quarterback with the big arm. So that's very useful. But the Seahawks are a great landing spot. And I know they want a quarterback, and they still have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for now. But those would be 2 great landing spots that I would see.
Yeah, John, I'm going to give you a chance. Weigh in on Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean, definitely surprised that he didn't go last night. Jim and I were talking on the stream yesterday. We felt like basically the prop of him 13.5 just presupposed like, okay, they're just saying is there or is there not going to be a quarterback taken in the first 14 picks? And we thought, well, of course, like quarterbacks always get pushed up. This was not the case. This was the class to buck that trend where there weren't really reaches at the quarterback spot, regardless of your opinion of Kenny Pickett. At least the Steelers didn't have to move up to get him or anything like that. But I think that what we thought about Willis, you got to recheck it. I think after the 32 picks go by and everyone passes, I think that speaks volumes. Like I think that there clearly are a lot of concerns from NFL teams where they were not willing to go ahead and take the plunge on a quarterback in Malik Willis. So they must think that he's further away in his development than what is worth spending a first round pick on. And that's pretty significant. You got to pay attention to that. So I'm surprised. I still think that he is what he is. He's got the rocket arm. He's got the athleticism. Can he put it together? Can he, all the classic cliches? Can he read the defenses, get through his progressions, all that stuff? All those are questions now. And I think that there are a handful of teams that would be nice fits for him. Jim, like you were saying, the Giants and the Seahawks. I have a hard time, especially with the Seahawks picking twice, back-to-back 40 and 41. I have a hard time seeing Willis getting past there. I would, if that does happen though, the Falcons could suddenly kind of pull this draft out of the toilet, essentially. I mean, not that I hate the Drake London pick. I think with all the other needs, they probably should have gone somewhere else with it. But hey, that's what we got now. But if they get Willis in the second round, that works out pretty well for Atlanta, I think.
If they have a quarterback that they like, plan there, say they don't get Willis. I mean, even if it's Desmond Ridder or Matt Corral, at least they want to set him up for some success. I mean, Atlanta, I put out a tweet the other day, which was ranking the worst wide receivers cores in the NFL, and Atlanta ranked as the number 1. And that was not even counting Auden Tate. When Zacchaeus is your wide receiver 1, I mean, your core has problems. And if you want to develop a quarterback in the second round. All right. Everyone wants to talk. Go ahead, Jim. One more.
Add one quick thing. The first round early was a referendum on today's NFL. There, as Johnny and you mentioned, Alan, there are no difference-making quarterbacks in the opinion of the NFL front offices. So the first 12 picks were spent on the most important other positions. They were spent on edge, corner, tackle, and receiver. All 12 picks. Complete referendum on the league.
Hey, Jim, just so you know, if you ever need to chat with us, you can chat in the private chat. You put that in the public chat. So when you call me a big dope in the private chat, nobody will see it. All right, you guys let's talk about some running backs, since this is where the fantasy rubber is going to meet the road right now. The latest line on Breece Hall is 39.5. Now that screams bet the under at minus 200. Okay. I mean, that means that he would have to get past the Jets. He would have to get past Houston. Let's start with you, Johnny. Give me through the running back landscape. What's going to happen in the first part of the draft? Are the running backs even going to go there? Is it the over 39.5 going to happen? And it's just a free fall.
I think the way the board is set up, I'd be surprised if Breece Hall slips past 40. I love him to the Texans at 37. I think that's a perfect marriage of
that's the nuts landing for fantasy, right? That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That would be so good. That'd be so perfect. They obviously don't really have a bell cow to speak of, and Breece Hall is, I think, far and away the best running back in this class. It's not really all that close. So I think that Houston would be smart to go that route. They already have a guy that they're backing at quarterback. Let's get him some weapons now. So I like the idea of Hall going to the Texans. And although it does get kind of tricky after that, I mean, I don't know if the Jets, after taking Michael Carter last year, if they would go after Breece Hall.
They have two. They don't have the 2 picks anymore either. Remember, they moved up, so they only have that 1 pick now.
Yeah, excellent point there. So, I again still think that Breece Hall doesn't make it much past 40. So there's that line. So I would take the under on him. But I mean, just looking at the other running backs, I mean, I wouldn't shock me if Kenneth Walker isn't the second running back off the board. It seems like James Cook is getting probably and I'm literally wearing a Georgia shirt right now, but like I don't think that he's the second best running back in this class, but he does have the type of skills that I think are attractive to teams, that pass catching ability specifically and the speed. I think he does package all of that together pretty well. So it's not completely out of the question that he goes. And then you get past it. Like Kenneth Walker, I think is going to be a landing spot dependent type of player. I don't think that he's a unique talent one way or the other. I think he's fine. I think he's a little bit better than
who's your comp level for him? Who would be your best comp for him? Is it Melvin Gordon light?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid one. I mean, yeah, the explosive production, I think that definitely would check out. So I like Walker enough. Gordon a better pass catcher, but he didn't catch a ton of passes at Wisconsin, if I remember correctly, but obviously developed that skill set. Walker, that's kind of an unknown for his game. So I think that we could see the running back, group just kind of hit a freeze after Breece Hall, and we kind of have something similar to last year where we have to wait until early day 3 for a bunch of these guys to start coming off the board.
And for fantasy football, day 3, not a problem for me with running backs. It's just obviously you're not going to be aggressive on them. All right, Jim, everyone was thinking that there was an outside shot. I would say a 10% chance that the Bills were going to spend that 25th pick. They're too smart to do that. That's obvious. Yes. But John just talked about a free fall. They're sitting there at pick 57 at the end part of the second round. Who do you expect them to take? Is that the running back spot?
Yeah, I really think that's their play because it's very clear. I know Dable's gone. I get that. But they dictate light defensive fronts with their multiple receiver sets, and they are full of opportunities to run the ball, but they haven't been able to capitalize the full potential the last couple of years. Look, Singletary did fine for fantasy down the stretch. It's very clear they want somebody in there that can punish defenses against those light fronts. Kenneth Walker could be that guy.
Jim, who are some of the other running backs? We all know about Isaiah Spiller. He's possibility to go tonight. After that, because I think that most people have that tier set, including James Cook as like a specialty back. I don't think anyone's overly excited about him for fantasy. But as we get into round 3, round 4, who are some of the players and who would be the late landing spots that would get you excited for fantasy football?
So teams with running backs, and that's where it gets tough. A lot of teams are pretty set at running back, so we're looking at rotational pieces for a lot of teams. So it's really hard to find great landing spots. Atlanta would be. Cordero Patterson, look, he had the career last year at age 30, and he faded down the stretch, and Mike Davis obviously so isn't much. So Atlanta would be a great spot. I could see Zamir White going there, Rashad White going there. I think those would be a couple of good landing spots. That'd be great. other teams, like I said, the Bills are a great spot because they will take full advantage of a running back. Outside of that, I don't see there are many outstanding landing spots because most of the other teams are kind of set at running back. Houston, we mentioned earlier, that's the nut spot, as you said, for Breece Hall. I don't see another spot where it's like,
I have two that I think are sneaky good, not at first because people won't perceive them as good, but I think whoever gets that job behind Derrick Henry, they're going to want to at least give that running back 8 to 10 touches if he's capable. And then, if Derrick Henry needs to be rested or does re-aggravate, that's a pretty good spot there. So again, that'll be a 4th-round player. That could be, a Tyler Algier type or someone like that. So I'm going to keep an eye on who the Titans draft at running back because they did have a 3rd-round running back a couple years ago, Darrington Evans, who just didn't even make the squad. You wanted to add one more thing before I go back to John?
Alan, spot on. Real quick, Alan, they've tried the last couple of years, and Johnny will attest to that just as you will. The Titans have been trying to add a back behind Derrick Henry for a couple of years. So I think you're making a fantastic call here that's probably what they continue to do.
I want to go to my resident. Okay, go ahead, John, because I have a question for you about the Georgia running backs.
Yes, definitely. I can go on for eons about those guys, but stylistically, if we're talking about a guy to go ahead and put behind Derrick Henry, I would love Kevin Harris from South Carolina. Like he's someone.
What's the knock on him? Was he an injury guy?
He was an injury guy this past year, got a little bit nicked up in camp, just didn't really get himself in gear. But his sophomore season in 2020, I think was about as productive, if not more, on like a per carry basis than Najee Harris. He was just playing for an god-awful South Carolina team that year, so everyone forgot about it or just didn't notice. The ball was going to – it was sort of like a running back Drake London thing where defenses know that he's getting the ball, and they still were unable to stop him because South Carolina couldn't throw the ball. They were just giving it to Harris, and he was just churning out yardage. So he's a big physical back, really densely built. I like him as – I mean, he's not built like Derrick Henry. No one's built like Derrick Henry. But if you want to have that same type of rushing style and not have to change your offense if Derrick Henry were to go out for an extended period like he did this past year, then I think Harris aesthetically fits that perfectly.
There's momentum for Georgia running back Zamir White to, the NFL likes him. They like those true old school running backs. But we all know in today's NFL, he's probably going to be complemented with, could he be the Buffalo running back? Where's the good? First of all, tell everybody about Zamir White, what type of a running back he is, and then give me a landing spot fit and a projected round where he might go.
Yes. So Zamir White is someone who was like a legendary high school running back out of North Carolina, tore his ACL his senior year, and then also tore his ACL his freshman year at Georgia. So he didn't start playing, and that's 2 ACLs before he really steps on the field at Georgia. So what you saw in like his, grainy high school film of him just, completely being a monster, you never really saw that at Georgia. He did get more comfortable, and you could feel like his mobility got a little bit better, his cuts later on in his Georgia career as the further he got out from that injury. But he's a north-south guy. I think just bottom line, he's a big guy. He's a hammer. So when you put him, the idea of him in Buffalo, I love that because you have Singletary and Moss who are on the smaller side who can't really like hammer it in the red zone. And if you want to limit the amount of times that you're asking Josh Allen to do that, then Zamir White would be a really good fit in that particular regard. So Zamir White, not going to do a lot as a pass catcher. I think he kind of is like maybe like a Mike Davis when Mike Davis was actually, kind of useful. I don't think that there's a super high ceiling for White because he is kind of stiff and doesn't have the full skill set. But if you just ask him to do what he's good at, he's good enough to execute.
So maybe he might be a good fit with someone like Alvin Kamara in New Orleans because he could do what Mark Ingram used to do. Right.
No, I think that definitely plays. Ingram, obviously gotten way up there. Things got late early for him. So yeah, I think the Saints could definitely use someone like White to take some of that between the tackles work off of his plate.
Now, White came in at a 96 percentile 40-yard dash time at 6'2", 214 with 64th percentile explosiveness. So you're right. He's a rugged dude, but he's fast. And Johnny, is his time speed show on film?
No, I was totally waylaid by his performance combine performance. I did not see that coming at all. I did not think that he was going to test well. I thought that honestly the combine was going to be like the final nail in the coffin of him potentially going undrafted. So for him to test as well as he did, although, tinfoil hat a little bit, a lot of the running backs, their speeds they got bumped up upon the official correction, whereas the receivers, they all had those like crazy, like 4.2 flat for Tyquan Thornton. They all got adjusted the other way. I don't know what to make of that exactly, but I don't think that you watch Zamir White play and you say that he's like a low 4.4 guy. I think he runs a little bit more like a 4.5 guy.
He profiles like an old school running back, a thumper, someone that's a rah guy in the huddle. I think the team's going to get a steal with him. All right, Jim, I told you I was going to come back to you with Desmond Ridder, but I just want to talk about one of my bets, and I want you to tell me, I took George Pickens over 36.5. Am I going to hit that?
I think you are. And I believe that George Pickens is going to be a difference maker in the NFL. But through the process of the preseason draft season, he's had some knocks on him. And so I think injuries have been one. I believe, John, correct me if I'm wrong, he got into a fight at some point. That's correct. He missed part of a game.
Oh, yeah. He whooped some dude on Georgia Tech as a freshman, just like put him into the wall Thanksgiving weekend.
So I think
I want that guy on my team.
Yes,
I do too, man.
Yes, because Johnny and I were talking on the show yesterday, and I said you want the receiver that has some issues, not a crazy dude, but
you don't want to go full Aaron Hernandez.
Thank you.
But you don't want a choir boy,
right? Terrell Owens, Randy Moss. I'm not saying George Pickens is them, but you know what? Hey, they were, they had a few personality things that teams said something about. But George Pickens, I really think he's going to be a very good X receiver. He's 195, 6'3", but I do believe he gets off the line quickly. He's a bit of a long strider. He could beat press man in a number of ways. He's sudden at the top of routes. Yeah, and his ability to catch off-frame passes and show some athletic acrobatic type stuff. Yeah, he's going to go over because of the pre-draft stuff, but somebody's going to have themselves a steal.
All right, so how about number 42 to the Colts? Do we like that landing spot, guys? No, Jim says no. John says yes. So start with the no, and then I want to hear the yes case.
Because of Pittman, they're redundant. I looked at that. And Johnny, I get what you're going. He would be a perfect player. But I think he's just redundant with Michael Pittman. I think they're both going to be kind of X guys, and I don't know that they want to draft two X's. Usually that doesn't tend to work out. You may well be right on that. But otherwise, George Pickens.
Green Bay obviously
the Buccaneers, the first pick in the second round. Tom Brady doesn't have much time left. Do they really want to trust Tyler Johnson? Chris Godwin may not come back right away.
Brady did personally ask for Russell Gage, and I think Russell Gage is a good player to hold the line till Godwin gets there. Johnny, what's the case for? You said yes on Pickens at 42 to the Colts. Why do you like that?
So Jim obviously has a really good point there as far as like the stylistic redundancy that might be there with Pickens, but I just think Indianapolis can't leave this draft with just Michael Pittman being like their one guy. Like they need to have a guy who's ready to rock right now, who's going to contribute right now. They obviously can't really count on guys like Paris Campbell anymore. So I think that they just get the talent in the door, figure it out. That's what I'm saying.
All right, and now we're going to talk about Christian Watson, since he was a riser when it started at the Senior Bowl and then through the testing. He's obviously going to go in the second round. I mean, he was mocked by a lot of smart mockers to even, flirt with the first round. So, John, let's start with you, and then I'll go over to Jim. What's going to happen with Christian Watson?
So I think that he ends up being like the second or third receiver off the board this evening. I'm not sure where exactly he goes.
Maybe he's the Indianapolis one.
He could be, but I think that he would be almost even more redundant to Pittman than Pickens would. Watson is super interesting. Obviously, he just crushed it at the combine. The production at North Dakota State just being bigger and faster than everyone that he was playing against. That afforded him a lot of good opportunities there at North Dakota State. But I think that he's a bit of a project. So I think teams that are counting on this guy going ahead and getting targets week one, I think that Watson's probably not that guy. I don't think that the polish is quite there yet. You could certainly see the tools, but I mean, we've seen guys with crazy tools get drafted higher than they should before. We've seen without all the production or maybe other things that you should be paying closer attention to, like Denzel Mims, amazing traits, bad football player. Like I think something along those lines when it comes to Watson a little bit.
All right. Is your Watson take similar to that one, Jim, or do you have a little different twist on it?
It's hard to argue with Johnny because I know he's right, but is he Aaron Rodgers' new Jordy Nelson?
Or is he Jeff Janis?
Yes, and yes. To all of them, yes.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is that guy who can put the ball where it has to be. If they develop trust early on, Rodgers is a kingmaker if he loves you.
He's an elevator. He's an absolute elevator. Yeah, the other wide receiver that everyone thought could end up in the first round that didn't, Western Michigan, Sky Moore. We've heard the Golden Tate comps. I mean, I think that I watched a little bit of him. He looked good to me. I know that it's, not the same level of competition. We'll start with Jim this time. Give me your Sky Moore take. Is he going to go off the board to the Vikings? If the Vikings can't trade out of that pick, is that a good one to replace Adam Thielen?
I don't know if they're going to spend a second-round pick on the replacement for Thielen because they may think Thielen could still play. They may think KJ Osborne may become a thing. Maybe he doesn't. I think they're not going to dip in that quickly. But the Bears would be a great landing spot for him. The Bears have a couple of picks early in the round. Obviously, they need receiver help for Justin Fields. I think Moore fits really well in with the cover two high shells of today, getting open in the middle of the field. I think he'll be a difference maker. The Packers are another good, but I don't know if he falls that far.
I don't think he gets past the 45 of the Ravens for the Hollywood replacement.
Oh, that's a fantastic point. Yes. If a team does trade up, and I don't know that these teams will, the Packers or the Chiefs could really make use of him.
John, who's your comp for Sky Moore? And are you you have to be in on him, right? You got to like what you see.
Yeah, I do like him. I think that he's the physical tools are pretty similar to a lot of other guys in this class. Maybe not quite as strong as a Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, but kind of a smaller. He's not even 5'10", so those Ohio State guys closer to 6 foot, both of them, but a little bit denser frame. And I think, according to Pro Football Focus, I think he had the most yards after the catch in college football last year. So that's something that you should absolutely catch your eye. I think that is something that can translate. He has that quick suddenness to get away from defenders, and he's not. He may be small, but he's not skinny. So I think that he should be able to still run through a little bit of contact, not a ton, but I do like Sky Moore. I thought that when I did my first mock last week that he was a potential option there at the end of the first round. I don't think that he falls too far tonight. I'd be surprised if he's around by 50.
We're about halfway through our day 2 preview. I'm Alan Seslowsky. I'm here with John McKechnie and Jim Coventry. You should follow us all on Twitter. And, of course, follow RotoWire. Follow RotoWire Betting, too. John's been putting out some great betting content, prop bets, gambling, great articles, stuff like that. I want everyone to go check out Jim's polarizing column on RotoWire where he takes polarizing players for next year. Christian McCaffrey, there's not a consensus on him. Gives you the upside, the downside, and then lets you decide if you should draft him. All right, everybody. Also, remember, if you're watching this stream, you can get RotoWire, get upgraded. RotoWire Premium for free for 10 days, rotowire.com/try. All right, back to the prospects. Somebody that I don't know what to make of him because he's a young player, but North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell. We'll start with John this time. We'll go to Jim next. Is he going to go in round 2, day 2? Where's Sam Howell going to go?
I would be surprised if he's still around tomorrow. I think that he, other than Willis, might very well could be the next quarterback off the board. Sam Howell's a guy that if we were doing this show a year ago, we were projecting to go first overall.
First overall.
I thought so. I thought that he was the best. He had the most steam as far as being that next guy, that QB1. And obviously this season didn't go particularly well for him. But I think it's important to note what he lost from 2020 to 2021. De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome, 50-55% of the target volume in that UNC offense.
The two running backs, right? The two
Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. And you're replacing them with Ty Chandler, who's going to get drafted at some point. He comes over from Tennessee. He's fine. But Sam Howell just didn't have weapons. They were all gone all of a sudden. I think the weapons helped him be like that instant overnight success at North Carolina as a freshman, and losing them, I think, did hurt him. And I think it gives us a little bit more of like a realistic representation of him. To me, he reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield without like the fiery annoyingness, but I think
all the good parts,
Yeah. On the field, very similar, maybe not as fiery, but I think that the comp to me would be Baker Mayfield for Sam Howell. And it's not as dirty of a word as I'm trying to make it out to be. I think that there have been times where Baker Mayfield looked like a viable NFL starting quarterback. I think that up here, maybe sometimes it doesn't work in the Browns for whatever reason. Like, just things seem to get weirder in Cleveland than anywhere else. But I think that Sam Howell can be one of those developmental guys who I think teams will be happy to get here in the second round. I don't think he goes in the third.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you said about Baker Mayfield, it started just a contentious with Hugh. What's the coach's name that was there? Hugh
Jackson or
Hugh
Freddie
Jackson,
Kitchens.
right? And right, Freddie Kitchens, it was already spoiled milk. So,
yeah,
all right, Jim, what do you think the best fit for Howell is? And do you think it's round 2 or round 3?
I do think, like Johnny says, he goes in round 2. I think teams need to take their shots at quarterback-driven league. Washington is a really good landing spot. They can't be sold on Carson Wentz, right? I mean, project.
I have Desmond Ridder going there at pick, whatever it is, the 40, 47.
Certainly could go there.
Yeah, but Howell's the next guy, so it could be,
Right. So we're agreeing they're looking for a quarterback. So either of them could be a good fit there. Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely think that.
All right, so then talk about Ridder. Ridder was rumored to be going in the back end of the first round. Our own Mario Puig said there was a shot the Saints would take him with one of their 2 picks in the first round. Are you a Desmond Ridder guy, or are you not a Desmond Ridder guy?
He doesn't have an NFL arm. Short throws are behind receivers. He runs, but Johnny said it's on the yesterday show. He's small. He's not a rugged runner, so he's not a high-end runner. He's not a high-end thrower. I get it. And like we said, some competition. You can't really take some of the games he had and say this is who he is because sometimes the competition completely overmatched him. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I think he's a career backup. Somebody will pop on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the 3rd round. I could see the Falcons, though, taking a shot at him.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, in the 3rd round, it doesn't matter. It's all upside from there. You land on Davis Mills in the 3rd round. I mean, You miss on Kellen Mond all the time, but all right. Let's talk about the tight end who everyone's presuming is going to be the first tight end off the board, and that's Trey McBride. I'll start with you this time, Jim, and then I'll add to you, John. You'll add some flavor on that, and then also tell me a couple other tight ends that we should be looking for. But Trey McBride goes in the first half of this next round, Jim, and where's the landing spot for him?
Trey McBride, he's probably the most versatile of tight ends. I think Greg Dulcich is a better receiving tight end, in my opinion. But I think if you want the full package, McBride is definitely your guy, and he may even rival Dulcich's receiver. We don't know if Gronk's coming back. My guess is Tampa Bay knows this. Cam Brate's their number 1 right now. Brady loves throwing to the tight end. Might not be a bad idea if the Bucs went there. I would think they want to give Brady weapons. The line is good enough. The defense is okay enough. I think giving him a weapon is very good. That is a very good landing spot I could see for him. That's probably the place I'll kind of hitch my wagon to, actually.
John, can you tell me anything about Jelani Woods? I like him at the current odds, plus 550, to be the first tight end selected. Obviously, McBride's a heavy favorite, minus 450. But I'm just talking about a little sprinkle. What do you know about Woods? I've been hearing a lot of buzz on him, a lot of hype on him. Why is that warranted or not warranted?
There just simply aren't a lot of guys like Jelani Woods. Like, he's a 6'7" tight end. Ooh. You don't see that too often. 6'7", 253 with 34.5-inch arms, 82-inch wingspan. So he's just a massive presence out there. And he made a really, really smart decision. He left Oklahoma State, went to a Virginia offense that throws to the tight end. And they had kind of a similar tight end prospect a couple of years ago, Tony Poljan. He didn't quite have the explosiveness that Woods did, but Poljan got a lot of production, got a lot of targets at Virginia. So Woods followed suit, goes ahead, and is a really integral part of that Cavalier offense this past year that was super electric, high scoring, a lot of fun. So a guy that big, I think you have to at least be interested in. And he's big, but he's not skinny. I think he carries that frame well, and he's got, pretty good speed for that size, ran a 4.6 at the combine. So I think that he's someone that isn't going to be ready right away to play heavy snaps, but I don't think there really are too many of those guys in this class to begin with. So why not take a shot on someone who 2-3 years down the road can be a real problem for defenses?
All right, I like that. But for fantasy, unlanded, who would be the top 3 projected best fantasy tight ends in this draft, John?
I think McBride, rightfully so, is probably that number one. Dulcich, like Jim said, has that pass catching ability. He was pretty unique at UCLA. I think Charlie Kolar is getting slept on a little bit as well. Outside of Jelani Woods, I think Charlie Kolar, he was productive his entire time at Iowa State. I think he could have come out and gotten drafted a year ago. I was a little bit surprised, frankly, that he even went back. I wonder if like him versus Freiermuth would have been a debate, perhaps not after how both those two worked out. But I like Kolar. I think that he's someone to keep an eye on. And Chigo Okonkwo from Maryland did a really great job at the combine. I thought he had one of the best combines of the tight ends. Started to come on strong late in the season for Maryland this past year. Kind of an older guy, might be tapped out as far as physical development, but I think that he's kind of a little bit of a matchup problem in the sense that he's not big like a normal tight end, but he is fast for his size. So I mean, he's an unpleasant guy with the ball in his hands if you're a safety to try to bring down.
Jim, anything to add to the tight ends for fantasy? Who should I be taking?
So Kolar for fantasy, I have as my number 2. I agree. McBride's the best.
Where did he go to school? Where did Kolar go to school?
Iowa State.
Okay. And the Giants at 6'7", 252. His measurables were great. Ran a 79th percentile 40, 88th percentile in the explosiveness drills, and 81st in the agility drills. Definitely a move tight end. So I think for fantasy, he's a very intriguing option depending where he lands.
Jim, back to you on this one here. I like to look at some of these wacky props. Special teams players. All right, we're only going to cover this for a minute here. Matt Ariaza, is that his name? What is he, a punter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So do you want me to go to John on this one first?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
He's a
John,
punter, though. The dude can launch the ball all over the field.
Who is Matt Ariaza? Where does he go to school? And why the hell is he getting drafted? And why is he a minus 400?
He was like the reason why San Diego State was worth watching last year, because it certainly wasn't their offense. Their defense was pretty good, but it was just like you'd get pumped when they go 3 and out deep in their own territory. It's like, here he goes. I mean, it was unlike anything else. I mean, I don't think even Michael Dixon, when he was at Texas, had the same sort of fanfare that Ariza did at San Diego State.
How do you say his name? I said it wrong then. I said Ariaza. What's his name? Ariza?
Yeah, I say Ariza, I believe. But yeah, the dude just has like a mule leg. Like the guy just can absolutely bomb it, 60, 70 yards down the field, can put it where he wants to. He's nuts. I mean, he like single-handedly like really helped flip the field for San Diego State and helped them win a lot of games because they win on the close margins. They're not a high-scoring offense, so they needed him to be great, and he was more than great.
What was the movie, Jim? I think it was like in the late 70s. There was a mule kicker for a football team. Do you remember that? It was a Disney movie. And they had an actual, they said there was no rule. It was like an NFL team. There was no rules. They couldn't have a mule. So they brought a mule on and they did the back kick. And he was just ripping field goals.
Remember. I don't remember the name, but I do remember how you say that. Yes.
Brilliant idea. Brilliant
mule.
Idea. Yeah.
There's no rules against it.
Yeah, right. Well, they said there's nothing says here we can't have a non-human. So, all right. I want to get into a little bit of the late round. Before we get into the late round quarterbacks, Jim, I saw a note late that the Raiders were not going to pick up the 5th-year option on Josh Jacobs. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. I understand why financially with Devontae Adams they can't do it, but is there any one of these like name brand schools, Florida, Alabama, that might have a running back that you like that could get picked up with a late round pick for the Raiders? And should we be interested in those guys?
I don't think the Raiders have the draft capital to spend. They have very few draft picks here. So they picked 322, 421, couple of fifths. They're in that division, the AFC West. They can't afford another running back. They'll run Jacobs till he's done. Kenyon Drake's going to be in the mix after suffering the injury last year. I don't think they're going to waste their time on a running back. Maybe a UDFA, Julius Chestnut from a small school. But other than that, no, I don't see them using a draft pick on running back just because they need more than that.
All right. So then I just want to come back to you here, and I want to ask you about Carson Strong. You had some pretty harsh words there, Jim, for Desmond Ridder. You said he's not an NFL quarterback. He has his hive of fans. So Carson Strong, what are the pros? Why is he is he even a day 2 quarterback?
He has more negatives than positive, and he has a good deep arm. That's probably his best asset. He does show some ability to make some reason throws, but he's pretty inconsistent. And when he's under pressure, the accuracy kind of goes. He also has this medical condition. He was like a high school senior, had a blood flow issue, and it caused knee degeneration. 2 additional surgeries since. Stares down his receivers too much. Yeah. Developmental project. That's about as much as I could say.
All right, John, I'm going to ask you about a couple late round deep quarterbacks. I'm in a lot of these Superflex Dynasty leagues. I'm in a startup right now as we're talking, a slow draft. And, I mean, you have to draft all these quarterbacks in these 30-man rosters. So 2 of the names that have come to my attention that I'm going to get in the late rounds, if you could tell me if these guys even have a shot at making an NFL roster, and that's Bailey Zappi, and the other one I want to ask you about is Jack Cohen. So tell me about those 2 guys, and are they going to be fantasy worth an end of the bench stash at least?
So Zappi at least is interesting. He comes from like the least NFL offense, or I guess it's not. The gulf isn't as wide from air raid to the NFL as it once was. But he was asked to throw the ball a ton at Western Kentucky. He was asked to throw the ball a ton at Houston Baptist, and Houston Baptist a couple years ago, just because of COVID kind of really mucking up a ton of schedules, a bunch of FBS teams played Bailey Zappi and Houston Baptist, and he lit them all up. Like he was lighting up, higher competition than the team he was playing on. So I think he has quick processing. The computer chip up there is definitely working at overtime up there. He knows where he's going with the ball. I think he has probably enough arm, but it's not anything to write home about necessarily, but he knows where to put the ball. He's a smart player. The ceiling's not super high, but I think that as like a replacement level backup type of guy, I think that he could end up making a roster and if thrown into the fire, not completely crater a team or a drive, that type of thing. So I do like Zappi as one of those late round guys.
How about Jack Cohen? He's the Notre Dame guy, right? Is he the player that is, I want to say the next Gardner Minshew, the 6th round QB that actually has a pulse?
So Cohen, perhaps I lived in Madison too long, but watching him at Wisconsin is like, why isn't Graham Mertz playing? But that's like a whole other debate. But Cohen, he definitely exceeded my expectations this past year at Notre Dame. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like he was way better at Notre Dame this past year with their quarterback coaching than he was at Wisconsin. So that that might be the sign that something is starting to click for him. So I'm not completely writing him off. Again, he's someone who's probably going 5th, 6th, 7th round, that type of deal. But there is the pulse there, like you said, Alan. So that's something to keep an eye. But I guess if
30th round of my Superflex draft, Cohen or Zappi, which one would you take?
Zappi, more comparable to Gardner Minshew.
Okay.
Similar offense.
All right, Jim, it's getting time. A lot of the bets, the wagers, the props have already been flattened out. All the value sucked out of them, but I'm having a little itch. I got a little sprinkle I want to put on some of these props. I'm going to ask each of you for 2 high confidence props and 1 long shot. Okay. So Jim, I'm going to start with you. Give me 2 props that you have a reasonable assumption that reasonable confidence that these will come in.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder, we'll just say over the posted number. It was 30.5. It could be moving as we go.
I'm going to look at
I'm not 30.5. Wherever it's at now, 40, wherever it's at, he is going to probably move beyond. He's a 3rd round pick. If you get a 2nd round prop number on him, go over that. Desmond Ridder, in my opinion, is falling out. Also, Kenneth Walker, I think he's falling to pick 57. So I think if you get the prop and you can go over and get to where 57 is, bet it so you get the pick in at 57.
Okay, and then give me 1 long shot where I can bet a little and win a lot.
I don't have one right now.
All right. Okay. All right, John, I'm going to come to you. Give me your 2 bets where you have, you could tell yourself a plausible case where you're going to probably hit on these.
So, there's there's too much juice on Breece Hall being the first running back taken. And then Kenneth Walker is minus 225 to be the second one. If you wanted to fade that, if you think that maybe there is a dark horse to jump over him, James Cook at plus 650 is within reason. And then at plus 5,000, Pierre Strong out of South Dakota State, fastest 40 time among the running backs at the combine this year, plus 5,000, especially when there's so much unknown as far as how teams really value this running back class beyond Breece Hall. Are we so sure that it's a lock that it's going to be Kenneth Walker the second? I'm not. So I'll take a couple of long shots that I think at least have a path to paying that one off.
All right, Jim, did you come up with your long shot bet? And if not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you is, are we going to see any high profile, or, I would even count Hollywood Brown as a high profile trade, something that's significant to fantasy? Will we see any trades tonight? And if so, what do you think it might be? Is it Debo? Like, who is it?
The Debo trade has to be done. That had to have a first rounder involved, and it had to be a current one. When that time passed and they didn't get that deal done, second round and beyond, people don't want picks for next year. Usually you don't want that. Unless
Think about your fantasy league, right? You don't want that. You want this year. You want this year, right?
So we're going to keep seeing a lot of trades, but they're not going to involve players. This is going to be jockeying for position, getting up to get your guy. If we're going to go with a high pick, a high value prop, Charlie Kohler as the first tight end at 3,500. Big odds. If somebody's looking for that receiving tight end and they haven't had a Dulcich on their board, I could see that happening.
All right.
Long shot.
All right. I'm going to ask you the same trade question, John. Do you see anyone that could be traded tonight, even medium profile, like in the Hollywood Brown era? Or is it going to be someone like, like I said, like, is the Debo thing still in play? Any trades of any fantasy relevant players that we might see tonight?
Yeah, it's tricky because, I think Jim laid it out well, where if some of these big splashes were going to happen, they were going to happen last night. And they did. I mean, gosh, from like the 10th pick on, it was just like my head was spinning. It was crazy. But, I thought 10 was going to be the sweet spot if Deebo Samuel was going to get moved this time around. It seems like things have quieted down there. So I'm not sure that I see that happening. I wasn't completely shocked after thinking about it when it came to the Hollywood trade, because, there was, this is the life of like a modern day someone who follows the NFL, but it's like, Hollywood in February, like took all mentions of Baltimore off of his social media. Like what's going on here? So I don't know if anyone else is on those similar terms with their teams, so go ahead, go through the RotoWire page of depth charts. Make sure that they have the team in their Twitter and Instagram. And if they don't, they're going to get moved tonight. So you got time. You got like 2.5 hours before this thing starts.
That is unbelievable. All right. So now let's talk about like our redraft ranks and how it's been impacted by the draft. Jim Coventry, who was the biggest fantasy football winner from yesterday's draft? And when I mean that, I mean, who made the biggest jump in value? And then, John, I want you to think about it, because I'm going to come to you. And also I'm going to ask you who the biggest loser of value was. So, John, who was your biggest value gainer, Jim?
Jalen Hurts had to be. He's already going to run for a ton of yards, and he has A.J. Brown now. And then that frees up Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is no longer the lockdown number one, and he still has Dallas Goedert. And so if they run after the catch could be crazy there this year. So I think Jalen Hurts is a big winner.
All right. Who's your biggest loser? Who lost the most value last night after a trade or, the obvious is Mitch Trubisky. He's in trouble. He's dead man walking. He went from being a fun late best ball pick to don't even pick him. He ain't making it past the third or fourth game, no matter what happens. So who's going to be your loser, Jim?
Loser. Oh, tough call here. You know what? I think Kyle Pitts is a little bit of a loser here, because he was going to see an absolutely insane number of targets. He'll still see a lot, but now he's going to have competition with a bigger bodied guy. It was, again, we talk about redundancy. I know tight end and receiver, a little redundancy. So Kyle Pitts had a stratospheric upside. Now it's just a phenomenal upside.
All right, John, same question to you. Who in our redraft ranks just went to the moon last night?
Let's see here. So going up, I do love Chris Olave. I thought that worked out really well for him. I think it worked out well for Marquise Brown too. Ravens famously don't have a particularly high volume passing attack. And I think that Hollywood Brown, all told, was kind of miscast as being the true number one in that Baltimore offense. I think he's much better, just like in college when he was playing alongside CeeDee Lamb. He needs another guy to draw attention away. And he's not someone that you should be peppering with targets underneath. You should be letting him just fly down the field. Todd McShay said when he was coming out that he had the best play speed of any receiver that he had ever seen before. And I think that Hollywood still has that electric ability, even though he's gotten dinged up at different points. But him going out to the desert when you have DeAndre Hopkins going to be, just eating up a lot of that attention, I think Hollywood Brown, we're going to start to see the return of him being a big play threat here at the NFL level, which I know we've kind of forgotten about here in the last 2 years.
Yeah, Jim, you put in the chat there, Mark Andrews as a winner. He certainly is the tight end one in my redraft rankings right now. Go ahead, John, and then I'll give you my winner and loser.
And then last one, and I was thinking about this as well as Jim was going on, but I think this works out really well for Amon-Ra St. Brown and for TJ Hawkinson, because I think that basically it sucks if you already got a lot of Jameson Williams in your rookie, or if you got a lot of like dynasty shares of Jameson Williams, because he's basically going to be an expensive decoy this year. But I mean, Jared Goff, low average depth of throw, and teams could cheat up on that last year because there wasn't a guy to push the safeties back. Now there is with Jameson Williams and Chark there. So I think that we're going to see anyone who was betting on the Amon-Ra St. Brown like downfall this coming year, they're going to be waiting another year. I think that this clears out so much room for him to operate at what he does best. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown went from someone I was kind of tepid on to someone I'm going to be targeting.
Johnny, I got to follow up because I made the same note on TJ Hawkinson because he was getting ganged up on last year because he was the guy to stop. And like you said, Jameson Williams opens it up. I want to know about the ACL, though, because for 1 year fantasy, is he not going to be ready till November?
I think that all reports are that he's on track. He suffered the injury on January 10th, I want to say. So I think that there's a good chance that he's doing some stuff by training camp. I'll be surprised if this injury is something that keeps him out of games beyond mid-September.
All right. That's good logic right there. But again, it is an ACL. There is a ramp-up period. He's not going to have any training camp. That is concerning as well. All right. My big loser is in Superflex leagues. My QB 32 is now Ryan Tannehill. He's got nothing. And they're going to take a quarterback. I would take Zach Wilson ahead of him. I'd take Davis Mills ahead of him. I would take I would take the part-time starters ahead of him right now. It was already looking bad last year. And now, they're going to hand that ball off to Derrick Henry. So he would be my biggest loser. And biggest winner's got to be Rashad Bateman, right? He's going to get the opportunity. Yes. He's a former first-round pick. Hollywood's not there. You talked about Mark Andrews, but he is the wide receiver. So that would be my biggest winners and losers. Okay, here we go. Bold prediction time, and then we're going to wrap it up. Jim Coventry, I see steam coming out of your ears. Okay, I'm going to have you first. Give me a bold prediction, good or bad, that's going to happen tonight. What's going to shock the world?
Oh man, my prediction was from last night. Okay,
but I'm talking about what you could do here is I'm going to give you time to think about it. Is something it's got about a bold prediction is defined as a 15 to 20% chance of happening. You can't just be, it's got to be plausible, but something that you could see happening that will shock the world. It could be a trade. It could be a trade up. It could be anything, a pick that's totally out of left field. So what is your bold prediction for the day 2, round 2 and round 3? What's going to happen?
Johnny, you're going to have to go for me, man. I can't come up with one.
I think the Packers are going to alienate Aaron Rodgers and their fans once again and not take a receiver tonight.
Yes. That is a great bold prediction. It's funny. If you would have told me last night that between the Packers and the Chiefs, there would be 0 wide receivers drafted in the first round, I would have said, hey, what are the odds on that? Probably plus 10,000. And you would have been right, So I like that. So no wide receivers for Aaron Rodgers of the Packers in round 2. I love that bold prediction. All right, Jim, you're up. I hope you thought of one. You're on the spot.
My gosh. Oh, my God. I've got nothing. Right. Breece Hall. All right. Bold prediction.
There you go.
Breece Hall falls to the late part of the second round. And no running backs get touched until 20-plus picks are gone in the second round.
It's funny, my bold prediction was going to be, I love that, by the way, and that's probably the more plausible one. I was going to say no running backs in the round 2 would be my bold prediction, so we're on the same brain. All right, guys, we hit it exactly on the mark. 1 hour. We gave people a good little, some player takes from last night, some actionable intel for tonight. And everyone, just remember, go to rotowire.com/try. You can try us out for 10 days. You can see all of John's betting articles, his prop tips, Jim's fantasy football offseason articles. You can see our dynasty rankings, everything. 10 days free. rotowire.com/try. All right, everybody, we'll be back. Are you guys doing any more live streaming this weekend for the draft? Any plans?
I can do it. If Al, you put me on a spot right now. I can do Instagram live starting it when it starts at 6:00 when the draft starts.
So anything that we do, people is going to be a surprise. Don't count on anything. All right, we need a day off too. Okay. All right. Other than that, we'll have some good recaps on Monday, of course, on SiriusXM. And also through all of our live streaming of that. So stay tuned to the channel. And if you've liked this video, if you got value from this, just do us a favor. Click the like button, click the subscribe button if you want to. You don't have to. It helps us out. That's how you pay us for this beautiful free content and these great takes. All right, everybody. Great talking to you. We'll see you next time. Enjoy day